Win or lose or draw for Tony that night, it's definitely something that he has earned. He has solidified himself as one of the best lightweights currently and the number one contender for the UFC light heavyweight title. But I wish we could just stop it all there, and that's all we're going to talk about. Khabib's going to ride off into the sunset, whooping Conor's ass, and that was it. But that's not how it all played out. After Khabib neck cranked Conor to hell and made Conor tap out, there were some words exchanged between the two of them. Conor McGregor, as he was laying on the floor, got spat on by Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib Nurmagomedov then turns his attention over towards the corner of Conor McGregor, where him and Dylan Dennis get into some kind of verbal altercation. I don't know what was said on Dennis' side. I don't know what was said on Khabib's side. I'm not going to sit here and speculate either. Words were said. Khabib Nurmagomedov then jumped over the cage, jumped from the cage. I mean, obviously, if you've been to a UFC fight or you've watched the UFC, or if you obviously watched this weekend, you know there's a barricade around the outside where fighters or people videotaping or anyone can walk around the octagon completely. Khabib jumped over that. He landed on that little barricade. He jumped from the barricade over two of Conor's guys and got right in Dylan Dennis, and him and Dylan Dennis went at it, and that broke off in the crowd. And then from there, Conor McGregor decides to jump up on the side of the railing. As Conor's doing so, one of Khabib's guys is also jumping up on the railing. Conor sucker punches that guy. When Conor gets back down, two of Khabib's teammates jump over they get into the octagon now. From there, they both take shots at Conor. They both land clean shots on Conor, and most of the shots that landed on Conor wasn't even looking. They were coming from behind Conor. And it was just a really bad situation all in all. The smartest decision of the night was Dana White coming in, having to explain to his champion that he cannot put the belt on him that night because people who were in the crowd, people who paid their hard-earned money, are not ready to get showered with stuff. And Khabib, when he was leaving the arena, got showered with soda or alcohol or whatever it may have been. People were throwing it at him, and UFC President Dana White did not want that to happen, and he did not want his people to be subjected to that. It was just a crazy situation. It was a situation that I've never seen in mixed martial arts, and it's probably a situation that we won't see happen ever again. If it does happen again, it's going to be very, 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 very long ways down the road. I feel like these two will be eventually matched up again. I really feel like we are looking at a long feuded rivalry between these two camps. I would love to see Ultimate Fighter, aka versus SPG, but that's just me. I'm on a very small bandwagon of the Ultimate Fighter. I understand that. But yeah, that was UFC 229. It is now in the books. The history books have been written. Khabib Nurmagomedov is the undefeated, undisputed UFC lightweight champion of the world. In other MMA news, this past weekend, there were two Bellator events. The marquee matchups on both those two events were the semifinals of Bellator's Heavyweight Grand Prix. In the first semifinal Friday night, Matt Mitrione was defeated by Ryan Bader. Ryan Bader is Bellator's current 205-pound champion. He will have an opportunity to become Bellator's first two-division champion, simultaneous two-division champion, that is. He completely just outclassed Matt Mitrione. I mean, you can really tell that Ryan Bader's wrestling, kind of like how DC out-wrestles guys at heavyweight. Ryan Bader does the same thing with the Bellator guys right now. It really wasn't even a close fight. Meathead just got his ass beat. It was that simple. Ryan Bader, his wrestling is just far, far too good for somebody who just has no wrestling game at all. I mean, someone who just wants to go in there and take you out like Matt Mitrione does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he takes people out. He's done it to people like Fedor Emelianenko. He's done it to other people. He did it to people all the way to the finals of the Ultimate Fighter that year. But the biggest thing I think that people are really underestimating is, even though he is small, He's got a lot of speed, that is Ryan Bader, for somebody who is, I guess, now a heavyweight. So the fact that his power now transitions very well into the heavyweight division, but also his wrestling, and he just outclasses other people that are almost not twice his size, but still have a good 20, 30 pounds on him sometimes. Just unbelievable, and it really shows what kind of athlete that Ryan Bader is. I really feel like maybe he needs one more run in the UFC. I mean, call me crazy. We might not see it, but I feel like I would love to see him fight DC. I know it's a crazy thing. I know DC will probably whoop his ass, but it's something that, as an MMA fan, it's really something that intrigues me. Now, in Saturday night's main event, it was the All-American Chael Sonnen against Fedor Emelianenko. And it was short, it was sweet, and Fedor knocked him out in the first round. It was quick. It really seemed like Chael did not belong in a fight with Fedor Emelianenko. Fedor was one of the most dominant champions back in Pride. He has always been a very dominant fighter, but at this stage of his career, you don't expect him to be the same dominant fighter that he was, and he still is, and he proved that on Saturday night, and he's one win away from being Bellator's heavyweight champion. I mean, for somebody who's never been in the UFC, everything he's accomplished, he's still one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. And that's crazy that you can say that about someone who's never stepped foot in the UFC, that they're still one of the greatest in their weight class. But Fedor is one of those guys who will symbolically always be recognized as one of the best, if not the best, heavyweights that have put on a pair of mixed martial arts gloves. Now, while I connect him here in a second, I'm going to have Dave Manley on the line here in a second, guys. He is the creator of MMA Bobbleheads. They make some fucking awesome bobbleheads. If you're a sports memorabilia collector, this is definitely something that you want in your collection. He has a set of Brian Ortega is the one that's now coming out. The one before that was Bruce Buffer. The one before that was, I believe, Chuck Liddell, and then Dan Henderson. He has all of those four available currently right now, and he has two separate prices. He has one price where you could buy an autographed bobblehead, and I believe it's around $75, and then he has a version where it's not autographed at all, and that one will run you about $35. But the fact that these bobbleheads aren't for selling for more is just mind-boggling. The detail and the work that are put into these things are just fucking amazing. But I will let Dave go ahead and explain furthermore to you guys about it. How you doing today, Dave?
But good. I want to see you. There you go. Cool. You an Angels fan?
I am. I kind of grew up down the street from the stadium.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What city?
In Anaheim.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah,
okay. I grew up in Pasadena.
Oh, no shit. Yeah, I grew up kind of right on Stake. Well, I grew up all over Southern California. I grew up from pretty much from Ventura all the way down to Oceanside and everywhere in between.
Oh, nice. All right, man. Awesome.
All right, well, let's
you talked to Sam today?
I did. I talked to Sam just about an hour ago. He was buying a brand new truck today.
Oh, nice. He drives a minivan.
Yeah. So
did he tell you that?
He did not tell me that, but I'm glad he's upgrading finally.
Yeah, I see him in his minivan. I'm like, what the? That's so crazy. But he's got 3 kids, so.
Well, yeah. We were talking about his just preparation for him to take all his stuff with him. If he takes his kids with him to a Brazil card or something like that, he's got to take 3 or 4 or 5 different diaper bags just for 3 kids.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, he's a family man, that's for sure.
Oh, that's definitely, I enjoy that. Well,
cool, man.
I just want to jump right into it with you. I'm a big fan of bobbleheads. So when I first, obviously I've loved MMA for a very long time, and the biggest thing that I could not find is a quality bobblehead until I stumbled upon yours.
Yeah, cool. When did that happen?
It was a couple weeks before International Fight Week, and I was showing my wife. I was like, "Look at this Dan Henderson bobblehead. It is awesome."
Yeah, thank you. Dan is the first bobblehead that I made, and he was the reason why I made the bobbleheads in the first place. I went to go buy a Dan Henderson bobblehead, and they didn't make one. And Dan's my sports hero, so when they didn't make a Dan Henderson bobblehead, it was just, I couldn't believe it. So that inspired me to start making them myself.
Do you reach out to the fighters yourself, correct?
Oh, yeah, dude, that was one of the hardest parts of this whole journey. Now I look back at that, and when I look back at that and I think about how hard that was back then, I mean, it's nothing compared to what I go through now. I mean, that was like a walk in the park, just trying to get in touch with fighters and contact fighters and show them what I'm doing. There's so many facets to what I'm doing now that it's nuts. But yeah, to answer your question, I reach out to the fighter, get in touch with them, and then show them the artwork or show them what I can do or tell them about my vision. And then from there, they either say yes or no. And believe it or not, a lot of fighters say no, and they don't want this made out of themselves. I will never understand it, me personally, especially when I show them, especially now where I'm at, where I have, I just released my fourth fighter, but I have another 4 or 5 fighters in the pipeline, and I'll show them how much better I'm getting at making these things. And when they still say no, I'm like, okay, I don't get it, but I still get turned down all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, you lose you miss every shot you don't take, and then it's kind of like the same thing with me with trying to get interviews. You just hit up everybody you can, and whoever hits me back up.
Yeah. You know what, man? I'm a big fan of casting a wide net and just keep going. What makes and breaks people in life, like what separates the successful people and the unsuccessful people in life, is the ability to get up off your butt once you get knocked down. It really is, because everyone's got a great idea. Everyone's got the $1 million idea. Everyone wants to do this, wants to do that, and everyone wants to be rich, right? Everyone wants to be successful. But the big thing is like, are you willing to go through the pain and the adversity to get to that point? And generally, everyone's gung ho. And this isn't just what I'm doing, Bobo. This is just in life in general. Everyone's gung ho, and they grab their sword, they grab their shield, and they get ready to go out to war. And then once they get a little nick or they get a wound, they head back home, and that's what the big separator. So, in this business for me, I've got knocked down so many times. It's unbelievable. I question myself so many times. I've dumped so much money and time into this, and there was many times where I just thought that, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what is this that I'm doing? What have I gotten myself into? But I believed in what I was doing. I believed in the product. I believed in the art, and I'm a massive MMA fan. And I believe in the sport, and so I just kept going. And once you do that, eventually you're gonna find some success.
Totally. What has been your selection process for the current fighters that you've gotten?
Well, at first, so Dan Henderson was the idea to start this company. So I was lucky, really, really lucky to have Dan Henderson as my first fighter. I didn't set it up like that, because before I asked Dan to do it, I had already asked a dozen other fighters at least, and they all said no. It just happened to be that Dan said yes. So when Dan said yes, first of all, I couldn't believe it. But second of all, that kind of opened up the door for other fighters, because Dan is so well respected in the game. So my process was out of desperation at the time when I was just making the Dans. But luckily, Dan introduced me to Chuck, and then I met Bruce, and then I just started meeting all these real high-level, high-end, real popular fighters, and now I can be a little bit more choosy on who I made. Dude, I'm not going to lie to you. I would have made anybody if anyone said yes. I was asking people that were on the prelims of Fight Night 162. Like, who gives a shit about this card? Yeah. And I would have made a bobblehead out of the curtain jerker of that night. So, there was no shame in my game. I just wanted to make a bobblehead out of any MMA fighter. So now it's, the main process for me now is A, am I a fan? B, do you have a iconic pose that I can try to replicate? And C, will you say yes? And how bad do I want to do it too? So that's kind of like where I'm at now.
Well, yeah, that like you said, the iconic pose. I love the Brian Ortega bobblehead pose when he was knocking out Eddie. That was just that was an awesome fight.
Yeah, that was an awesome fight. And then so I did not have Brian before that punch happened. I was watching that fight alone at a